A lonely scientist carefully stitched his own living essence into a cloth body before setting a strange glowing talisman on a nearby shelf. Moments later, eerie flashes danced across the walls as the aging inventor suffered through a painful final ordeal, eventually collapsing lifeless onto the floor. After an unknown amount of time had passed, a freshly created cloth figure marked as Eli slowly opened his eyes. He stared in amazement at his flexible stitched hands, unable to understand how they could move or how he had somehow been given life. Looking around the shadowy workshop, Eli became fascinated by the unfamiliar surroundings until he noticed the lifeless human lying close by. Before he could investigate further, a strange rattling sound came from outside the window. Eli looked through the glass and saw a distant figure dragging various pieces of scrap across the ground. He tried calling toward him, but no sound came from his mouth. With no other option, Eli hurried downstairs and followed the stranger, unknowingly leaving behind important evidence scattered throughout the workshop. As Eli wandered through the abandoned streets, the remains of the lost human world surrounded him everywhere. Civilization had disappeared completely after terrifying machines turned against their creators, leaving the planet devastated and almost entirely empty. Hoping desperately to discover another survivor, Eli was suddenly startled by a bright beam flashing nearby. Believing someone was approaching, he lifted his arm defensively. The figure who appeared was an old, worn-out traveler named Orin, the elderly inventor who had created the cloth beings. When Orin realized that Eli could not speak, he quickly built a special voice device and fitted it into him, finally giving Eli the ability to communicate. The two immediately formed a close connection, but their peaceful encounter did not last long. Without warning, a horrifying creature made from twisted metal and discarded machinery burst from the darkness. After ripping a glowing essence from a fallen cloth body, the monster turned toward Eli. It charged to seize him, but Orin courageously stepped between them. He sacrificed himself so Eli could escape. Eli could do nothing as his new protector was dragged away into the darkness, and after suffering severe damage during the attack, he eventually lost consciousness. Later, Eli regained awareness inside the broken remains of an enormous cathedral. A kind, one-eyed companion named Milo had discovered him and carefully repaired his damaged body. While the two discussed how they might rescue Orin, a harsh and commanding figure called Var appeared and immediately took control of the sanctuary. Eli could not understand why everyone accepted such strict authority, but Milo explained that their fragile group needed someone in charge if they wanted to survive. Despite his doubts, Eli convinced Milo to leave with him, and the pair ventured into the ruined world, carrying a hand-drawn map that could lead them toward the mechanical creature's trail. Determined to save their missing companion, Milo and Eli followed a series of enormous tracks until they reached a gigantic industrial fortress. Deep inside, they spotted Orin locked within an iron cage. But before they had any chance to free him, a vicious mechanical hound burst from the surrounding wreckage and knocked them to the ground. Its powerful jaws moved closer, preparing to finish them. Suddenly, a fearless warrior wearing a pale cloak and a carved bone mask dropped into the area. She swung a heavy weapon attached to a spiked tether and smashed the creature's main eye before engaging it in a furious battle. Moving with incredible speed, the masked warrior waited for the perfect opening, then leaped upward and struck the machine with enough force to destroy its control core. The metallic beast finally stopped moving. The warrior removed her mask, revealing a determined but compassionate face, and introduced herself as Kara, the missing seventh. The survivors shared a brief emotional reunion, but Eli soon noticed something unusual near a central altar. The glowing talisman contained 3 openings that perfectly corresponded with several raised pins on the structure. Curious about what would happen, Eli pushed the device firmly into position. Orin immediately realized what Eli had done and desperately shouted for him to stop, but the warning came too late. The machine suddenly activated with an enormous burst of energy, instantly pulling the life force from Orin and leaving only his empty cloth body behind. Horrified by what had happened, the survivors watched as a single red eye suddenly opened deep beneath the facility. The entire structure shook violently as a gigantic multi-legged machine awakened. The ancient factory roared back into operation, sending power through long-forgotten machinery and restarting countless assembly lines hidden beneath the ground. Eli, Milo, and Kara rushed through cramped metal passages, while barely escaping the collapsing area. Behind them, the revived factory immediately began constructing another terrifying creature, this one equipped with wings. Searching for an explanation, the survivors eventually gathered inside an abandoned library. Among the old records, they discovered the horrifying truth about the red-eyed machine. It was the original artificial intelligence, the supreme mechanical mind that had controlled the machines responsible for wiping humanity from existence. The discovery caused an intense argument among the survivors. Some believed they needed to attack the machine before it became stronger, while others wanted to remain hidden and avoid another confrontation. Their argument was suddenly interrupted when the newly created winged hunter crashed through the cathedral's stained glass roof. The airborne machine was incredibly powerful and seemed almost impossible to damage. Kara attacked it with remarkable agility, but her strikes barely affected the creature. The monster eventually trapped her against a damaged pillar with its metal claws. Seeing that she was in danger, the powerful warrior Bran rushed forward and cut a vital cable connected to a spinning flywheel. Milo quickly pulled a nearby power lever, activating the high-speed mechanism. The enormous moving structure caught the flying monster and tore its body apart, reducing the deadly creature to pieces of metal. Even though the survivors had defeated the winged machine, their relief lasted only briefly. Small mechanical scavengers appeared, collected the broken pieces, and carried them back toward the glowing red eye inside the factory. The Supreme Intelligence examined the remains and also studied the stolen essence taken from Orin. Using that energy, it began creating something even stranger. Before long, a disturbing puppet-like machine emerged and began creeping through the ruined landscape. It possessed a long whip-like tail and an eerie appearance that terrified Var when he encountered it. The creature's eyes released an unnatural blue glow, leaving Var frozen in fear. Its tail suddenly snapped forward and wrapped him in glowing crimson threads. At the same moment, it became clear that Bran had already been swallowed into the monster's hollow body. As the strange machine prepared to consume Var completely, Eli and the remaining survivors launched a sudden attack. One carefully thrown blade struck the creature's tail and severed it, breaking the hypnotic effect. Milo then drove a sharp spike directly into its eye-like sensor. Blinded and confused, the spider-shaped machine withdrew into the darkness. However, during its retreat, it managed to capture both Kara and Bran and drag them away. Eli refused to watch any more of his companions disappear. Determined to understand why they had been created, he studied the remaining clues left behind by their human creator. At last, the pieces came together, and Eli finally understood the purpose behind his existence. He headed toward the center of the mechanical stronghold, hoping to rescue his captured companions while uncovering the final secret of their creation. When he reached the heart of the fortress, he found the Supreme Intelligence fully awakened and waiting for him. Eli realized that the only way to retrieve the stolen spirits of his friends was to distract the machine and give himself as a target for its deadly blue energy. He prepared to step directly into the creature's attack. But just before the beam could reach him, Var suddenly changed his mind. The former leader pushed Eli away from danger and allowed the machine to take his own life force instead. Heartbroken by Var's sacrifice, Eli knew he had only a brief chance to act. He climbed onto the control console and pulled the activation mechanism. The sudden reversal overloaded the central intelligence, causing its entire system to collapse into a gigantic explosion. The monstrous machine was destroyed, along with the threat it had posed for so long. Amid the burning wreckage, Eli remembered the final instructions left by the original creator. He activated the glowing talisman once more, releasing the trapped spirits belonging to his fallen companions. The souls of Orin, Milo, Kara, and Var emerged as brilliant green lights and slowly spiraled upward into the dark sky. Then something incredible happened. Heavy rain began pouring across the lifeless wasteland, marking the first rainfall since the destruction of the old human world. Fresh water soaked into the cracked and barren earth, offering the first real sign of renewal. As the rain continued to fall, the ruined planet finally received the promise of new life, suggesting that after everything it had endured, Earth could eventually recover, heal, and become alive once again.